Today marks the beginning of Pride Month. The Governor Evers kicks off celebrations by raising the Progress Pride flag over the state capitol. Plus, we'll take a closer look at a series of bills state lawmakers are working on to support LGBTQ plus Wisconsinites, and why this time of the year is typically the most dangerous for teen drivers on our roads. You're watching News 3 Now at 5. Although summer hasn't officially started, this week's heat and the humidity sure has made it feel like it has. Rain across the area today, trying to cool things down a bit. Julian Seawright out on the weather patio, and he has the very latest. Julian?
That's the thing, Eric. It has definitely gotten a lot cooler out here on our weather patio thanks to those storms and heavy rainfall that had moved through Dane County and much of Madison. But keeping an eye on where it is as of right now, it's pretty much dissipated throughout much of Dane County. You might start to see a couple of more clusters over the next couple of hours, but it's mainly moved north near the Dells area and closer towards Adams and Juneau County. Now, over the next 3 hours, we could see a couple of spotty showers or even an isolated thunderstorm. But overall, we are looking for the next 3 hours or so to be the end of any kind of rainfall. So in the last 24 hours, we've seen from our rain vision an estimated radar is bringing close to around 2 inches for areas around Janesville, mainly to the east, where we did see that severe thunderstorm warning that yesterday that had brought in heavy rainfall to that area just outside of the eastern side of Janesville. But around Dane County, we were close to about an inch of rainfall. And folks, we hit 89 degrees for us here in Madison. But what really matters is that now it's about 78 degrees. So we've been warming up just a bit more as the cloud cover is starting to break. But around Dane County, areas to the west, already into the 80s, once again in the upper 70s for us to the east and to the south. What this really is just showing the change that has happened because of those rain and storms that have moved their way through. About 11-degree difference for us here in Dane County and Madison itself. Now, we still do have an air quality advisory in effect for Dane County and areas to the east until about 11 p.m. this evening. But, folks, we are looking for another mild, hot, and humid end to our work week. We'll be talking more about that in our rain chances in a few moments. Until then, over to you.
Julian, thank you. Today marks the beginning of Pride Month, a time where communities all over the world host parades, festivals, and more to celebrate the LGBTQ plus community. Pride Month started as a tribute to those who took part in the Stonewall riots. June 28, 1969, police raided a gay club in New York City called the Stonewall Inn. It led patrons, staff, and neighborhood residents to riot outside. Protests and clashes continued over 6 days, with many demanding the creation of places where the LGBTQ community could be open about their sexual orientation without having a fear of being arrested. Today, lawmakers gathered with community members at the Capitol to mark the beginning of Pride Month here in Wisconsin. Governor Evers signed an executive order to fly the Progress Pride flag over the state capitol the entire month. The flag represents marginalized groups within the LGBTQ plus community, including people of color, the transgender community, and those who are living with or have died of HIV/AIDS. During the ceremony, the governor spoke about challenges LGBTQ people have faced and how he will never stop fighting for them.
Our state is home to an incredible history of LGBTQ activism and advocacy, from the Black Knight Brawl in Milwaukee to being the first state to ban discrimination based on sexual orientation. I will always stand with LGBTQ Wisconsinites, including our trans and gender nonconforming kids, and will fight to protect them with every tool and every power that I have.
A version of the Pride flag has flown above the Capitol every year since Governor Evers took office. He says it will continue to fly over the Capitol during Pride Month in the future. Inside the Capitol, lawmakers are working on their own agenda to support LGBTQ Wisconsinites. We have new details tonight on what will be included in that plan, as political reporter Will Keneally reports from the Capitol. Will?
Eric, it's been since 2015 and a U.S. Supreme Court decision that same-sex couples in Wisconsin have had to worry about the state's gay marriage ban. But last summer's decision to strike down abortion rights puts into question whether the high court will overturn other precedents like gay marriage. That's why Beloit Senator Mark Spreitzer wants to take Wisconsin's gay marriage ban off the books once and for all.
It is a real concern. Prior to the Dobbs decision, I think we were more focused on updating our state statutes related to marriage equality. It would stop Wisconsin from being able to perform our own same-sex marriages if federal marriage equality were to be overturned. So we'd be back to a place where Wisconsin couples would have to go out of state to get married. I don't think anybody wants to see that happen.
Now, it's a pretty involved process to get the gay marriage ban off the books. It was added to Wisconsin's Constitution in 2006 and would take roughly a minimum of 2 to 3 years for that process to get it removed. Now, that process would ultimately go to the voters for a referendum vote if it passes the legislature. Now, Spreitzer wants to include this as a part of a series of legislation that is LGBTQ supportive that they will introduce yet this session. Reporting from the Capitol, Will Keneally, News 3 Now.
Will, thank you. And new at 5, the co-chairs of the legislature's Budget Writing Committee have confirmed they are planning to introduce a plan to allocate $2 million to Green Bay to help the city manage the 2025 NFL Draft.
Well, I think our motion today is going to be something that certainly provides the ability to invest in that, as well as invest in communities across state and other projects that are worthy. We certainly want to see the NFL draft here. We are very excited about that, and we want to make sure that tourism can invest in that as well.
The total cost to host the draft would be about $7.5 million. More than $1 million would be raised by the Packers. An additional $4 million would be raised through local partners. School is almost out for the summer, which means more teen drivers on our roads. AAA says it's this time of the year that is most dangerous for young drivers. Our Catherine Merck joins us in studio with some of the data behind our teen driving in Wisconsin. Catherine.
Eric, Wisconsin sees a spike in teen driving deaths during the summer months, above the national average. While the data show dangerous behavior happens during these months, there are ways parents and teens can make sure they aren't part of that statistic.
Between Memorial Day and Labor Day, we see a disproportionate number of crashes and fatalities among teen drivers.
AAA calls this time between those two holidays the 100 deadliest days for teen driving.
Coincides with the time that they are out of school, and so that certainly plays a big part in it.
Wisconsin sees an above average spike during the summer months. Over the last 10 years, about 36% of traffic fatalities resulting from a crash involving a teen driver occur during this time of year. That's compared to 31% nationally.
It's just certainly a warning sign for parents here in Wisconsin to know that there does seem to be a higher rate of this here, and it's something they need to be on high alert for.
The scary statistic is also seen at Wisconsin hospitals.
In the summertime, our numbers tend to go up. If you look at all road deaths over the course of a year, about a third of them happen during the first 100 days of summer.
At SSM Health, these numbers line up with the kind of care it provides in the summer months.
Some of the more common ones we see are distracted driving accidents where people are going off the road, rolling their cars. We do see a pretty big uptick in the number of pedestrians, such as cyclists, that are hit by vehicles as well.
While the numbers seem troubling, there are some things teens and parents can do to reduce these deaths and keep the roads safe to enjoy during the coming days.
We know that parents really lead by example when it comes to these things. As a parent, making sure that you're following all the rules of the road, modeling the kind of behavior that you want your teen driver to engage in.
There are other states near Wisconsin that are also above the national average for teen driving deaths. For comparison, Minnesota and Illinois are also above average at 34% and 33%. Michigan has the same percentage as Wisconsin, with 36% as well.
Catherine, thank you. New tonight, the University of Wisconsin's Carbone Cancer Center has received more than $11 million in federal grant money. Those funds will be used to help support prostate cancer research, as well as new and improved treatments for those in advanced stages of prostate cancer. It's the second most common cause of cancer deaths among men in the U.S., with an estimated 34,000 dying from the disease so far this year. Now that the House has passed the compromise bill to raise the debt ceiling and avert a potentially catastrophic default, it's now up to the Senate to act. Senate leaders are calling for swift passage, but there is opposition from both sides of the aisle.
I'm going to have to swallow hard on some parts of it. I'm sure other members say the same thing. But the responsible thing to do for America is to pass it.
This is going to do nothing, the McCarthy-Biden plan, to restrain spending.
Party leaders are hopeful bipartisan support will carry the measure like it did in the House. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office said spending cuts in the bill would reduce deficits by $1.5 trillion over the decade. Of Wisconsin's 8 U.S. representatives, 3 voted against the compromise, and one of the 2 Wisconsin U.S. senators says he will vote against it when the bill gets to the Senate floor.
So to have a complete debts, a clean debt ceiling, I would say violates the whole purpose of having a debt ceiling, which is to force some fiscal sanity on Congress. But right now we've got one party that could care less about the fact that we're mortgaging our kids' future. They can't seem to spend enough money.
So this was not so much a vote against compromise, because we've been saying for months that, we should lift the debt ceiling. In fact, we shouldn't even have a vote to deal with this. That's a whole other conversation we should have at some point. But the problem is a lot of the information wasn't forthcoming.
Spokane was joined by Gwen Moore and Republican Tom Tiffany in opposing the deal. The other 4 Republican representatives supported it. Senator Johnson says he's very concerned about the level of spending in that bill. A new study has identified a link between sleep apnea and smaller brain volume, which could increase the risk of dementia. The French study found that a part of the brain connected to memory shrank in people with severe sleep-disordered breathing. These areas were smaller in people with severe sleep apnea who also had beta amyloid plaques. That's a hallmark sign of Alzheimer's disease. People without these plaques did not have that smaller brain volume. Weight loss medications like Ozempic aren't just helping people shed pounds. Many patients say since taking the drug, they've lost interest in addictive behaviors. It may be because these drugs have an effect not just in the gut, but also in the brain. Clinical trials in rodents show promising results, but trials in humans are needed to prove it. Neither Novo Nordisk or Eli Lilly are currently running any of those trials. This traditionally has not been a big market for drug companies, although doctors say there's a huge need for better treatments. Time to vote for Best of Madison 2023. You have until the end of the month to vote for your favorite businesses, people, things to do, and much more. Just head to channel3000.com and look for this story on our homepage, and then scroll down to the bottom of the article, and you can click on each category to vote. All you'll need is a valid email address to register. Make sure your votes are counted. You can only vote once per category, so make your votes count. Coming up, Julian is back with the latest forecast, plus hurricane season officially begins. Experts tell us what to expect after the break. And as the weather warms up, more people are out walking and biking. Tonight at 6, how Madison officials are targeting problem areas to improve safety for cyclists. And a check of the numbers on Wall Street as the Dow surges more than 153 points in Thursday trading. The Nasdaq up almost 166. The S&P 500 adds 41, and we'll be right back.
You're watching News 3 Now at 5.
City officials in Davenport, Iowa say 3 residents of an apartment building that partially collapsed on Sunday are still unaccounted for. Earlier this week, authorities said 5 people were missing, but 2 of them have since been contacted and are safe. Newly released documents also found engineers visited the building 3 times this year. They shared concerns over cracked bricks on the outside of the building that got worse as the year continued. They're now assessing how and when to take that building down, but the mayor made it clear it will be done in a dignified manner.
This needs to be done in a way that it respects that this is a resting place. Believe me, that we understand the significance of this tragedy.
Despite reports of structural problems with the building, city officials defended their inspection process, saying an engineer concluded in May that the building did not need to be evacuated. New information could mean more legal trouble for former President Donald Trump. He was recorded talking about a classified document that he kept after leaving the White House. 2 sources familiar with the matter tell CBS News the audio tape is from more than a year before federal investigators searched his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida and seized records marked classified. The sources say the recording captures Trump acknowledging there are national security restrictions on the memo that he had.
He possessed the classified document, and he had the intent to possess that. This is a huge piece of evidence for the special counsel. It'll be highly influential in the decision of whether or not to indict the former president. And certainly, if there were to be a trial, this would be mighty powerful evidence, a tape recording of the president himself.
Now, Trump's lawyer, Jim Trusty, did not dispute the facts of the reporting, but accused the Justice Department and the FBI of a leak campaign. The special counsel declined comment, but there are indications that his investigation into Trump's handling of classified documents may be in its final stages. Hurricane season has officially begun, and weather experts have mixed predictions about how severe this year's storms will be. Laura Aguirre shows us what's on the radar.
NOAA is predicting a near-normal 2023 Atlantic hurricane season.
Near normal, which, depending on where you live, may have a very different meaning.
There's nothing good about a near-normal hurricane season in terms of activity. We're expecting a busy season.
Busy indeed. Forecasters predict up to 17 named tropical storms could develop. Of those, 5 to 9 could become hurricanes, and possibly 4 of those could become major hurricanes, Cat 3 or higher, with sustained winds of up to 129 miles per hour or stronger.
That raises the prospects for significant impacts
On day one of the season, the National Hurricane Center is already tracking a potential tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico. They say it could develop into the season's first named storm. If that happens, it'll be Arlene, the name topping the list for 2023. In this case, the NHC says landfall is not expected. A major storm of any severity could be devastating for parts of Florida, where many are still trying to recover after the Category 4 Hurricane Ian hit last year.
We're just hoping it doesn't happen again. It'd be really bad luck if it did, especially after we just opened up to the public again.
Along with NOAA, the other major season forecast comes from Colorado State University. Researchers there say they expect a slightly below average season, one that will last until November 30th. I'm Laura Aguirre reporting.
And even though hurricane season ends November 30th, there have been several instances where storms continue to form well after that date. Weather experts say this season's activity will largely depend on two competing factors: El Nino, which inhibits storm development, and near record high ocean temperatures, which will help fuel hurricanes. Another hot and humid day with some showers out there and a few rumbles of thunder. Julian C. right now with your first warn forecast. Julian?
That's right. We're starting June 1st on a hot yet very summery type of note. And by that we mean spotty showers and thunderstorms throughout our afternoon, early evening, but it's not going to be sticking around throughout much of what we're going to be expecting heading into the rest of tonight. So getting into what we're going to be seeing, and we're looking for our weather headlines as of right now, but we do have our air quality advisory in effect from Dane County areas to the north and to the east until we get into about 11 p.m. for this evening. Other than that, let's take a look at our radars. We were dealing with showers and storm activity earlier today, but as we get into the rest of this evening, well, if you want to go into the pool because it is so warm and muggy out, now's the time to do it. We're not expecting much more in terms of shower or storm development around Dane County or areas to the south or even to the west. Some pop-ups near Jefferson County and near Janesville, but overall not looking for it to stick around too much longer as we get closer to our nighttime hours. So watching our future track, temperatures will climb a little bit more, but then fall right back into being mild for tonight. Now we've been seeing temperatures over the last couple of nights into this middle to upper 60s throughout much of southern Wisconsin. You can expect that being the same heading in for tonight. Walking out the door for tomorrow, upper 60s, looking for more clear skies, but cloud cover will still be mixing in as we get into the rest of our afternoon. And then around 2 o'clock once again, or even the noon hour, watching for developments of showers and storm activity throughout much of southern Wisconsin. Just west of Madison and to the west of Janesville is where we could possibly start to see some of that development rather early. And then as we continue into the rest of our afternoon, around the 5 p.m. commute, becomes a bit more spotty, moving its way closer towards Lafayette and Grant County near Platteville. But then as we get into the evening, not looking for too much more in terms of seeing real widespread shower or storm activity like we kind of did for today. Heading into our Friday nights, just expected to be another mild one, but a quiet start into our Saturday morning once again. But it's going to be not only hot, and also humid as we get into our weekend. Other than that, we're not expecting too much more in terms of any kind of precipitation heading into the next 24 hours. Some areas like Boscoville and Platteville could see close to about a half of an inch, but isolated areas is where we're really going to be keen and watching our eye on. Other than that, our three things we'll need to know. Highs will be near 90 through about Saturday. We'll start to cool down just a bit, but we do have, again, low chances of seeing any showers or storms heading into tomorrow. And then warm and hot, humid weekend is going to be on tap for us here in southern Wisconsin. Take a look at our 10-day forecast. We are looking for a bit of a cool down. So your first warn is that we're finally going to see lower 80s by the time we get to Tuesday, but then we heat just a bit back up from Thursday into Friday of next week. But the good news is it is going to be once again a dry spell for us, though we still kind of need some rain, especially for the farmers. So taking a quick look at traffic, if you're trying to travel eastbound on the Beltline over towards Monona, where there has been a crash which has really slowed traffic over the last 30 minutes. As of right now, speeds are about 12 miles per hour, so expect delays if you're going to be traveling eastbound at this hour. Otherwise, I-39 has been cleared up. And that's going to do it for our weather and traffic. Over to you.
Julian, thank you. Next at 5, how lawmakers are working for more access to affordable, quality child care nationwide. That story when we return.
You're watching News 3 Now at 5.
As schools let out for the summer, many families are making child care plans, but costs for camp, daycare, and babysitters are rising, and for many, access is limited. Karen Kafa takes us to Capitol Hill, where there's been a push toward finding relief for parents everywhere.
Working families across the country are facing a crisis.
Educators are walking away. Parents and providers are desperate.
Lack of access to affordable, quality childcare.
Providers are paid poverty-level wages, resulting in parents struggling to find and afford childcare, which results in their ability to work being impacted.
The National Center for Education Statistics found some 59% of children 5 years old and younger required at least 1 day of non-parental care per week in 2019. Per experts, since the pandemic, demand has only increased along with the cost.
The national average price of childcare was just shy of $11,000 last year.
Policy experts say the issue goes beyond family finances.
A lack of investment in childcare for infants and toddlers alone costs our country $122 billion each year.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are taking notice.
We have a broken and dysfunctional child care system.
Child care obviously is too expensive for those who need it.
As advocates argue, everyone stands to benefit from investment in care and early childhood education.
We often say childcare makes work because people can't go to work if they don't have childcare, and the economy is significantly impacted.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
And we'll have a final check of your first warn forecast when we return. Julian's back as we take a final check of the forecast.
Well, things are still going to be hot and steamy for us, but just how much more rain is in the forecast? Well, the good news is not a whole lot for some, but we do actually need some consistent rainfall for the farmers. It's been a dry spell, though. Hopefully after today and a little bit of tomorrow, we can start to help out just a bit in terms of any drought conditions that we have. It's going to be hot and steamy for the weekend, but we do have our first warn, which is cooling down just a bit into the lower 80s for next week before we warm back up into the middle 80s for next weekend.
Yeah, I saw the rain coming down on my lawn today. It was really a sight for sore eyes. A lot of areas are really dry out there. Julian, thank you. CBS Evening News is coming your way next, and we're back in 30 minutes with News 3 Now at 6. Stay tuned.